Mario Kart, a world-renowned video game title by Nintendo and one of the most famous and successful party game franchises of all time. Known for its fast-paced, action-packed kart racing gameplay and infinite replayability for casual and competitive players alike. While this franchise's main draw to players historically has been the fun use of colors, art styles, and unpredictable, sometimes rage-inducing, friendship-destroying gameplay, there is one aspect to these games that in recent years has come more and more to the general public's attention. The music! This is due to the massive popularity of the most recent console release for the franchise, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and its iconic use of jazz fusion. But you probably already knew that. There are a million different videos on YouTube referencing the Dolphin Shoals lick, or Mario Kart music's surprisingly rich and unique history rooted in the arrival of Formula 1 racing in Japan. What I want to talk about today is a Mario Kart game that sometimes, unfortunately, flies under the radar in the conversation about music. And that game is none other than
Mariokart Wii! Woohoo!
Mario Kart Wii is the sixth installment in the Mario Kart series and one of my personal favorites. It has become well known in the Nintendo community for its various glitches and ultra shortcuts, as well as its use of motion controls. The one aspect of the game I always felt went unappreciated was, of course, the soundtrack. But why is that? Why does Mario Kart Wii not stick out for its music? What is the game's musical identity, and how could we figure out what that identity is? To reach the bottom of this, let's go back to the Mario Kart game with what I would say has the clearest musical identity.
Mario Kart 8!
What is a musical identity? My definition of a musical identity is the genres that represent a game's soundtrack. The main genres. There are several steps that must be taken to figuring out the main musical genre for a Mario Kart game. The first step, identifying key themes. What is a key theme? A key theme is what I define as a musical piece that the band or composers use to establish the game's musical identity. Take the intro theme to this game as an example. It's the very first theme you hear in the game, and our first impression of the game, making its musical importance apparent. Other examples include Mario Kart Stadium, the very first track in the game, Dolphin Shoals, a track that introduces new mechanics to the player such as a prolonged underwater sequence, and the F-Zero tracks that highlight unique gravity mechanics. The second step is identifying the genre that all these tracks have in common, and for that, we're going to need to analyze. Let's look at the intro theme to the game first. Upbeat tempo, jazz harmonies, and the brass section. You may be inclined to identify this as a big band piece. But there's one very important factor to be considered. Slap bass. And distortion guitar and synth. This beautiful mix, this blend, this fusion, you could say, of acoustic jazz and high-energy electric instruments is known only as jazz fusion. This is Mario Kart 8's musical identity. Let's take a gander at the other tracks I named earlier and see if the theme of jazz fusion truly continues throughout the rest of the game. Mario Kart Stadium is an easy one to analyze due to its similarity to the intro theme. It has the same instrumental landscape and a similar use of harmonies. That's another key theme identified as jazz fusion. Now let's look at Dolphin Shoals. Yes, it's jazz. Yes, it has the saxophone, and that's very typical for fusion, but the instruments are all acoustic. Maybe something closer to samba. Unless, hear that? synth strings. I rest my case. Finally, let's look at the F-Zero tracks. While these tracks did introduce unique and new mechanics, are visually notable, and are eye-catching purely due to the fact that they're reimagined versions of tracks from completely different games, there's one thing about these tracks that really drives home that jazz fusion is the main genre in this game, and that's the fact that the band has taken the original themes of these tracks, that previously resembled genres like rock and metal, and have translated them into jazz fusion. If a composer is going to go out of their way to change the genre of a piece in order to fit in with the rest of the game's soundtrack, then I would say that said genre is pretty important to said game. Also, the results theme sounds like What About Me by Snarky Puppy. So there's that. There's that too. Now, if we apply the same logic to Mario Kart Wii, we should be able to get our answer, right? The main difference between these soundtracks is probably the lack of a live band and instrumentalists in contrast to 8. I believe it leads to a less cohesive musical identity. Not to say it's worse by any means, but it does make it more difficult to identify the game with just one genre. But let's look at the key themes of Mario Kart Wii that could give us some hints as to what its musical identity could be. If I had to identify this game with one genre, which is very difficult, it would probably be big band, or drum and bass, or fusion, or something. Take a look at Toad's Factory. Put that right after You Know I'm No Good by Amy Winehouse on the big band set list. It'll fit right in. It has all the qualities of a big band song with the altered chords, swing rhythm, walking bass, and brass section. Tracks like Rainbow Road and DK Summit introduce us to another genre, or at least some qualities of one. That genre being drum and bass. The Amen break makes a special appearance in these tracks, but other than that, I don't really have any other telltale drum and bass identifiers. Wario's Goldmine and the intro movie to the game introduced something slightly unexpected to the mix. That would be a hint of bluegrass. With their high tempos, use of the flat 5 in their melodies, and apparent use of classic southern instruments like the fiddle or banjo. The circuit tracks and the and the main menu theme are unidentifiable. I tried. I'm sorry, but I just don't know. They just sound like Mario Kart. And I know the whole point of this video was to figure out what that is, but I'm struggling here. Video game music, synth fusion. What even is a genre anymore? Moonview Highway is a special example because it actually contains two different versions of the same theme depending on where you're racing on the track. Also, I wanted to include it due to this crazy lick. Go over to the piano and do it. You know who you are. show the whole class. Is he doing it? Did he do it? I never know what that guy's thinking. Okay, just in case he didn't play it, here it is. Anyways, the one version resembles acid jazz with its use of orchestra hits and unapologetically synthy sound. The other version resembles more big band music again. In conclusion, I don't have a clear answer, and I think that's kind of the point. Each track has its own theme, and while the game does have a musical identity that could make someone say, "That sounds like Mario Kart," it's very difficult to place it into just one genre. The reason Mario Kart 8 is easier to place is because of its use of one band that has a pre-established musical identity, that being Dimension and Japanese jazz fusion. The main point of Mario Kart Wii music is not to encapsulate one musical idea throughout the entire game, but make music for each track individually to give a unique feeling to each track. And I still think that to this day, the soundtrack holds up. And then it came to me, like a sign from the heavens. A shout from God. Something I never expected. It's always been there over us. Praise break, the genre that captures the American racing essence. Take it to church, Mario. The piano, the chords, whatever this thing is. I came into this video originally looking for Mario Kart Wii's one identifying genre, and I'm now leaving with the realization that sometimes a game doesn't need one in order to have great music and a unique musical identity. But yeah, it's praise break.